Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you are in the world. This is The Node, your place for news, interviews, and education. I am Mike, aka Veteran Crypto, and joining me momentarily is David. Oh, just got a notification, sorry. And we got quite a bit of news to go over this morning. Hey, how's it going, David?
Howdy.
So we got quite a bit of news to go over this morning, and I know David has some really good deep dives for the second half of the show. What do you got for us today, David?
Okay, so today we're going to be talking about centrifuge. I'm actually working on that one, CFG. And then what was the other one that you sent me, Mike? Um,
Uh, XLM.
and XLM Stellar. So I'm getting those two pieces of deep dive research ready. But also, if you take a look at the node.pro, the website, so that just real quick, if you take a look at the node.pro website, so all of this research that we've been creating, every single day, there's going to, it already exists. You see the Intel? Yeah. How cool is this? So this is where
Dude,
you're
I
going to be
love.
able to search through it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
so
and,
so basically, me and David and Jeff were talking about this when they came up for the weekend, and we were just hanging out by the creek, and we just thought it'd be really cool for all of you out there to be able to like all these deep dives that David puts together, all the
and,
videos.
and Jeff is going to be putting together the deep dives in the same way. So it's all
He
going to
was
come
talking to me
together.
last
And
night about that.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, no, it's basically all of the slide decks, all of the videos, all the the intel, as far as these different projects and things like that. It's going to be a whole library or depository for for all of those, so that you can all come in here, and if you're thinking about investing in a project, you don't have to go around the whole internet, digging and reading white papers. And I mean, you can do that if you want, but or you can just come to the node.pro, and it's all sitting there on a silver platter for you, and you can just watch the videos, go through the slide decks, learn about the tokenomics, the fundamentals, who they're working with, what they have built out, all of the the good the good stuff that you want to know before you invest your money in something.
Yeah, and it's so the Intel paired with the courses and like the learn section. I mean, dude, this is probably the best educational content, anywhere on the
So much
internet.
value, so
Yeah,
much value, and most of it, 80% of it, costs you nothing. So it's like, I don't know why, I haven't looked at the analytics for the website, but there is literally no reason why people shouldn't be flocking to this. I mean, there's no catch. You go there, you start clicking, you start learning. It's we don't gate it, we don't charge for it. It's just all you got to do is just take the time, care enough about your investing to educate yourself. And, and this is for your benefit. I mean, about the only thing that we get from this, honestly, is, traffic to the website, just full transparency. It gives us traffic to the website and allows you to get to know us and, our material that we're building, the quality that we build, so that if you decide that when you want to take it to the next level and you want to take advantage of some of our very affordable paid services, you have an idea of the quality that you're going to get. So it's not like we hide everything behind a paywall and we're just like, trust us, you're going to get value from it. We're willing to show you. David with Ellie on Tuesdays and Thursdays, the paid coaching program, he's putting it on full display live on the show to show you what you get for your money. We're fully transparent here. We're all about making sure that you're all successful. That's what we're all about. Integrity first.
hell yeah, man. And so you'll be able to go through all of this research in the Intel section. And if you want to, build a skill set to be able to like actually make sense of what these deep dives are telling you, you probably want to hop into that learn section right there. And
We need to
then
call it. We need to call it Lear.
Lear, yeah, the Leering Center for
The
sure.
Leering Center. We need to call it the Leering Center. We got
Oh,
to.
so I see what Keith is saying there, the dark pool sell-off. So that transaction wasn't actually in a dark pool. That was a block trade.
And, and
It
and
was,
that's what I
yeah.
want to talk about because all over social media and all over this morning that all the stuff that I've been watching, all the different shows, everyone's making it sound like it was this major thing, and so I
It,
wanted.
it was. It was a big trade. It was 1.3
Yeah,
billion dollars of IBIT,
but
and
it was a private transaction. It was my understanding where one party sold it, another party bought it off of them. So
yeah, I mean, it was just a really, really big trade. But the fact that it did reverse, it reversed, the direction the
mhm,
market was heading yesterday. But Bitcoin actually absorbed that selling pressure pretty well.
yeah,
It didn't. It's not like it just dumped down 5%. Like it
yeah,
didn't. It didn't. So
yeah. And it's important to point that out. And that's kind of like again, why I named the show like what I did was I wanted to it was the hot thing being talked about today, and I just want to make sure that we like with everything we talk about that we give the entire picture. Not we don't hype things, we don't fud things, we just give you the whole picture. It's the old media, the old like actually reporting where we give you the whole story. What you do with that is up to you. We're not going to try to influence you. We're not going to try to paint a certain picture. We have no agenda. We just want to give you the story. So we'll get into that here in a minute. But you know what? Let me introduce the socials and get that out of the way so we can get into the news. So if you want to follow us and join the conversation with Keith and Ellie and everybody else in the chat, Crispy, then come on over here to YouTube and subscribe to the node.pro, or excuse me, at the Node Network, all one word. That's where you can find all of our different channels because, as always, we are a true network. We have this show, The Node, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Pacific time. We have Crypto and Chill, Tuesdays and Fridays, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. That's where me and Jeff just relax, drink a beer. That's what I did last night, and just talk about life and what's been going on in crypto since the last show. The blockchain report, that's Jeff's solo show where he does amazing work with the deep dives, and this is what David was just talking about, where he's going to start contributing these deep dives into that library. So Jeff, because he is our resident subject matter expert on airdrop farming, that's kind of dried up, but that skill set is still very valuable because he is able to find very early projects that have interesting fundamentals and tokenomics and use cases and things like that. So it gives our community and you that watch and subscribe an opportunity to get in very early potentially on low cap projects that could end up being a 10x, 20x, 30x or more, in the future. Could, not a guarantee. Sovereign Soil, that's my solo show.
what do you mean, Mike? There's no guarantees that I'm going to make a 20x.
I know, it's hard to believe.
Oh, what are you talking about?
Well,
Man,
unless you buy XRP.
they
Unless you
told
buy
me
XRP.
XRP was going to 10,000, man. That's like 1,000x.
Exactly. But that's XRP. That's a totally different animal.
Right.
So I have Sovereign Soil. I should have an interview coming up with a buddy of mine that has a shooting program that is really interesting. But this is our emergency prep and homesteading show. So I have over 20 years of experience in the military, over 20 years experience in emergency preparedness, and over 10 years of experience homesteading. And so, David and a couple of people talked me into sharing that experience. So I started Sovereign Soil. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, firearms, gardening, I built my own cabin and I didn't pay somebody to do it. I actually built it myself. David and Jeff came up here and checked it out. It checks out. The daily market wrap with David. So at 4 p.m. Eastern at the market close, he does about 20 to 30 minutes of technical analysis, goes over what happened in the markets that day, just so that you can kind of book it. This show is at the beginning of the day, that show is at the end of the markets, gives you an idea of the full picture of what's going on in the markets. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays, he is coaching a member of our community, Ellie, and showing that paid service that we offer. He's showing it at no charge, just so that you understand what it is all included in that service. Saturday Night Fever, that is Jeff's solo show. Something he's passionate about is music. That's a big part of this channel. We just launched a 24/7 music channel. But he does interviews and has been doing a bunch of interviews with other DJs in the San Francisco Bay Area. So he does interviews, they do tutorials, sometimes they just spin music. Hold on once. Getting that morning sun reflecting off of things. All right, there we go. So really cool, if you are just hanging out at the house on a Saturday evening and just want to have some music going in the background, it's a great show to tune into. The Red Pill on Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific. This is where we just talk about hot topics: religion, politics, legalization of different drugs, ancient civilizations, whatever. It's a panel of people, and we just have drinks, smoke it if you got it, and we just hash out, debate. Sometimes we argue, and at the end of it, we're all still friends. So, yeah, it's a fun show to watch. And then we got Gaming and Chill on Wednesdays and Sundays with Jay and Ellie from our community, where they jump on and play different games. Just another cool one to hang out, chat with people. And then we just launched yesterday the Node 24/7 Music. So, this is just, it's a kind of a deep ambient techno where you can listen to it. And we're going to be doing different styles of music, but you can listen to it, while you work, just background music. It, helps you be more creative, things like that. I've actually started listening to it myself while I'm doing, work on the channel and things like that. It's actually quite enjoyable. So you might want to check that out. We have another one launching today. And actually, I was wanting to tell you, David, I canceled the one for right after this show because Jeff is right after this show, and I moved it to right after him, and I uploaded it directly on StreamYard so we can put the banner and have it go to all the socials at the same time.
Sweet. I think that's going to be awesome.
Yeah. So yeah. We should get a lot better engagement off that, and a lot more reach. So I did that this morning as well. What else do we got? We got the X account. So if you want to follow us on X, it is at the @node_network. So, if you want to just, I usually go through every morning and throughout the day. And anytime I find, interesting breaking news in crypto or, politics or whatever, I share it. So, I know a lot of people don't like to include, politics and stuff like that. You cannot be in investing and ignore politics. It is far too big a part, influence on the markets. It's like the whole Iran war. It's like trying to ignore that and invest. You're gonna fail, because that is what's moving markets. So, put on your big boy and big girl pants. Freaking, you need to pay attention to politics if you're going to invest.
Yep, agreed 100%. You really do, because just about there's a lot of geopolitical stuff that will move markets, and when President Trump or Marco Rubio or Vice President Vance or you name it, high-level administration officials, when they make statements, those statements can be market moving. So you need to stay on top of the news.
Dude, if Trump tweets, it moves markets. If he puts up a Truth Social post, it moves markets. Yep. It's you have to pay attention. Put your feelings aside, whatever your politics, and at least keep your finger on the pulse of that. You're doing yourself a huge disservice if you're trying to ignore politics. All right, and then last but not least, definitely not least, is the Node.pro. This is the node of the node. This is where everything we offer resides. So the Leering Center, you can come here and you can you can learn everything about the traditional finance system, banking, fiat money, the history of fiat money, crypto, DeFi, all of it. From how to use wallets, how to move your crypto from centralized exchanges into cold storage, how to use browser wallets safely, best practices to cancel. What's the word I'm looking for? After you interact with a protocol.
Oh, revoke.
Yeah, revoke privileges. Basically, whenever you give a protocol permission to or access to, say, your USDC or your Bitcoin, how to revoke that so that if that platform, that protocol is compromised, it doesn't have access to your wallet. So those best practices. It is going to save you so much money learning how to do all of these things, not sending your crypto, your liquidity to the wrong wallet address. All of these things are very small things that could save you hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, even millions of dollars, depending on how much liquidity you're playing with. So
liquidity.
Yes. So, and again, no charge. Without master DeFi without risking $1. We do not charge for this. There's no catch. There's no gimmicks. Just go to the node.pro, go to learn and start your journey. We can't make it any more simple. The intel. This is what we were talking about at the beginning of the show. All of the deep dives that we do during the second half of this show. All of the deep dives that Jeff does on the blockchain report. On Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. All of that is going to be in a library here that you can access 24/7 anytime you want and do deep dive research on, Tau or Bitcoin or XLM or whatever. It's whatever you are interested in, you can find that information here and at least give you a very solid understanding of that project's fundamentals and tokenomics and things like that before you deploy liquidity. We're spoon feeding you gold here.
Yeah, seriously.
All you have to do is pick it up. I can't stress it enough. The newsletter. So the newsletter, this is something that David is making sure. It's taking a while because we want it to be right. We don't want to rush it. You can do the no cost sample right here. My email's in here. You click and it generates it based off the assets that I selected, not a set not a set family of assets. You can do commodities, stocks, and crypto, and it will give you a full breakdown of ETF inflows and outflows. It will give you the prices, the movement, links, to verify. It's going to give you the ranges, the on-chain metrics. It's going to give you the liquidity flows, derivatives, catalysts, all the big stories. There's so much value here. And right now, again, we're giving it away. Just go, put in your email, create an account on the website here, and use it. While we're dialing it in, just make sure that you verify, the information that's in it, because, like I said, it's still a work in progress. But it's going to save you hours of trying to go to different websites and scrubbing different social media accounts and going to different news websites and trying to find all of this yourself. You just select what you're interested in and generate it. And in a couple of seconds, you have all the information you need. Again,
and take a look at that first line there. So, record $1.7 billion aggregate ETF outflows are driving a supply overhang, signaling a shift to institutional de-risking. So, I mean, this is like, it's really, really close to being, I think it's very close. It's very close. I wish I knew why it randomly breaks. Like, because
it's AI.
Like, I don't get it. Like, sometimes, like these data here look pretty legit, right? I think that this is, damn near on point. It's close. It's close. But once it's like really, really done, and it's like, yeah, yeah, it's
Mm.
done, then I mean, this is going to be the place where you're going to want to go just to get your pre-market brief and post-market recap.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so, yeah, I mean, just again, just amazing value that as of right now we're just giving away. It's like, it's and then
Well,
coaching.
go to the website. Go to the website. Go to the Node.pro. Make a free or no cost account.
We
Can't
can't
say
say the
that.
F.
Can't say that word, but yeah, just create an account and get on the email list, and that's plenty of value for anyone right there.
Hey, shout out to the arena. We got 20 people watching on the arena.
Hell yeah.
All right, and then coaching. So this is what I was talking about. That David is showing live what you get on on Tuesdays and Thursdays on the daily market wrap. But again, this is something if you want to schedule a no cost consultation, set a time to meet with David, and he'll go through, see where you're at in your journey, see what your portfolio looks like, the amount of money you're working with, where you're at education wise, and if you're ready, then he'll take you on as in his coaching program. But this is for people that are wanting to take their education to the next level. We highly suggest that you go through DeFi University first, learn all the basics so that you get the most for your money. We don't just want to take your money. We want to make sure that you get the most value for your money. So go through DeFi University, make sure that you understand the basics so that during your coaching time, you can really focus on getting deep into the advanced strategies and learning the protocols and how it is that David makes his living. And that's how he makes his living is off of investing, DeFi strategies, these stocks and bonds and arbitrage plays and looping and all these things that we talk about here on the show. He genuinely makes his living doing that. So if you want to learn that stuff, you need to learn the basics. In the military, we call it crawl, walk, run. At first, you don't want to be just like if you're going to the range, you don't just want to run out there and start blasting off rounds. You're just wasting rounds. First you want to learn the fundamentals. How do you operate the firearm? How do you load it? How do you make sure it's safe? How do you handle it? What's the proper trigger squeeze? What's the proper sight alignment? What are all these things? The fundamentals. Then you walk. Then you practice. Doing either dry fire or you practice putting lead on target. But you do it slow and controlled. Get those muscle movements down, and then as you get more skilled, then you can run. Then you can just be popping around. You can be jumping on the live calls on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Today I'm going to be jumping on with David in the community. And again, we have a 7-day free trial on that. But then you can jump on those calls with a bunch of people in the community, usually about 10 to 20 people that are sharing different opportunities that they're finding on different protocols. So that's where you find mentorship. That's where you really take it to the next level. And you have people, you're surrounded by people that you can pick from to have a mentor, to have somebody to help you navigate and avoid costly mistakes that many of us made early in our journey because there wasn't something like this out there. All there was a bunch of people that were wanting you to pay $10,000 or more for them to teach you. And we're doing it at no cost. So I can't stress it enough. Take advantage of all this.
So basically with the coaching, it just comes down to what your goal is. If your goal is to build a skill set, then take a look at what I've been doing with Ellie over the last couple of weeks. Ellie started with next to zero experience in crypto and DeFi, and it's what is it like 6 weeks later, and Ellie has operated natively on Ethereum mainnet, and a handful of layer twos, Base and Arbitrum, AVAX C chain. Yesterday we were on the Hyper EVM chain. She's operated on Pendle and Aave and Morpho. She's been on GMX and Hyperliquid. She's run interest rate arbitrage plays, statistical arbitrage plays. She's traded asset A against asset B, and used a bunch of different chains. She's used Ton
and made a little bit of money.
Yeah, Ton and BitTensor Tau and Ethereum and Sui and Solana, and the Hyperliquid layer one. So that Hyperliquid was messy, that's for sure. So just it comes down to what you're looking to achieve. So for Ellie, it's about building a skill set. But for you, that person watching, if maybe you've got $250,000 or something that you want to invest in crypto and DeFi and you want to avoid losing it, well, it's probably a good idea to learn what to do and, most importantly, what to avoid from me. I'm an expert, a professional. That's what I do for a living. So, and I've worked with over 400 people in like greater than 30 countries, over the past like 4.5. Yep. Check out the coaching.
Yeah, no, it's what I've done in my life, in all, my careers and everything that I've tried to accomplish is I find subject matter experts like David, like Jeff, my neighbor that, was, built, had his own construction company for 40 plus years. He's the one that mentored me on how to build a cabin. I didn't know, I had some construction experience, but seek out people that have cracked the code. If you want to be successful at something, find somebody that's successful at that and align yourself with them. That is how you fast track yourself to success.
Yep. And so I see what Crispy's saying. So Hyperliquid's a pain in the ass, to be completely honest. Like, especially with really, really small amounts of money, like what we were, playing with yesterday, bridging onto and off of the Hyperliquid layer one, and then onto the EVM chain. And then, in Ravi, when you're using just a hot wallet, you can get a lot of error messages operating on the Hyper EVM. So it's it can be a little bit messy there.
All right. And so the community, again, if you want to join the community, you can jump on our no cost Discord. We're always in there. Me, David, Jeff, Ellie's in there quite a bit. Scotty D, we have a bunch of really knowledgeable people in there.
He dropped some fire yesterday about
Yes,
Tau.
He did. I saw that conversation you and him were having. That was,
dude.
And I'll be honest, like a lot of it I didn't understand, but what I did understand was it was some very, very insightful information. So I highly suggest, again, no cost, no gimmicks, get in there. And you can find that link in the description, below, or you can find it on the no.pro. And then we have our next paid call, that one I was talking about with David and the community, the experience. And there is a 7-day trial, no cost trial that you can use if you want to try that out for a week. So that's three calls that you can be on and see what it is that you'd be paying for. Again, we're not going to hide something behind a paywall. And trust me, bro, check everything that we offer. Check it out at no cost. If you find value, sign up. If you don't. But one thing that we always ask is please, 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 if you find this show and the content, the news and the information we put out valuable, please like, share, and follow. It doesn't cost you anything, and it helps us immensely. And if you're interested in just a snapshot of all of our shows, this is where you find it. Under programs, it has our whole schedule, all of our evening shows, all of our daytime shows, and all of our live calls. So if you want to know, what's going on and when you can jump on, this is where you find it. And then last but not least is our swag. So David has done a great job designing and putting this up where you can find, hats and shirts and hoodies with all of our different shows. With if you want to help us represent and support the channel, because we are a business, and this does cost money to run. We're trying to get to a point to where it at least pays for itself. Help us get to our first milestone.
Soon.
So with that, let's jump into the news. All right. So we got about 30 minutes to cover the news, and then we'll be jumping into the deep dive. So right out the gate, actually, I'll share this. So right out the gate, we got Aerodrome did 4 billion in DEX volume last week. That's more than half of Base's total, and Base just flipped Ethereum. So it's interesting to see what Aerodrome is doing and what it's been able to accomplish only being on Base. And I have some really, really interesting news that I want to share here in a second about Base here as well. So Canton, one of our favorite projects here on the channel, introducing a Base Canton bridge. So looks like a retail path into Canton continues. Selected Base assets can now bridge directly into the Send app on Canton, bringing your Base balances into your Canton wallet, where sending, receiving, and swaps are already live. The first supported set is Send USDC, Coinbase wrapped Bitcoin, and Frax USD, which is Frax's stablecoin, all from Base. Canton was built for institutions first. Send's mission has been to bring retail in, taking infrastructure design for institutional settlement and making it usable for everyday people. That continued with Send Canton Wallet, a dedicated Canton experience with its own wallet, transfers between Canton users and swaps across CC, CUSD, and USDX. This bridge is the next step in that path. The reason that I am excited about this is with this bridge, potentially the next step is that with Canton assets, it opens up the doors for DeFi, potentially on Aerodrome and Morpho and a lot of the Base protocols. That is what I want to see, because I am very bullish on Canton and plan on holding part of my bag long term, and I want opportunities to earn with it. I want to be able to take out loans against it. I want to be able to loop. I want to be able to do these advanced strategies, and this is a very big step in that direction. So, David, what does this mean to you, in your experience?
Yeah, so I'm reading about this right now. It looks like that Zenith protocol that we've been talking about just a little bit over the last couple of weeks. It looks like Zenith, that Zenith stack, it's bridging the gap between a traditional Ethereum virtual machine chain like the Base chain and Canton, which is more of a private walled garden. So Zenith acts as the execution layer that runs natively through the Canton protocol. So, rather than just wrapping a token and passing it over, a transaction that's initiated on an EVM chain like Base, it can route through an interoperability layer using CCIP to hit Canton. And then once inside Canton's walled garden, Canton's global synchronizer allows for atomic execution. And so that means that a multi-leg transaction across Base and Canton, it either completely succeeds or completely rolls back. So that keeps institutional data encrypted. That's pretty cool. And then what was the wallet? I think it's called Send, right?
The Send wallet.
Send. I've never used that one.
I haven't either. SEND.
Yeah, SEND, the Send wallet. So it looks like this interoperability layer is built into Send. It directly connects Base to Canton. That's interesting. So it looks like this Send project is addressing this paradox in crypto, where retail networks like the Base chain, they're fast and accessible, but they're completely public. While the institutional networks like Canton, they offer this airtight privacy, but they're walled off from the general public. And that's made it really difficult. Whoops. That's made it really difficult, to get spot exposure to Canton. There's a couple of ways you can do it, but mostly through gaining access to tokens through like a validator. Like many of these wallets are running their own validator nodes on the Canton network, so they've got native spot Canton, um, kind of like what the Braun wallet's doing, I think.
Yeah, I
But
mean, my Canton is on the Canton network, but and it's private, and all those things that the institutions want. But like I said, me as retail, and I'm sure institutions at some point, they're going to want to access DeFi. They're going to want to do things with their assets so that they can earn, and that's what this is going to allow.
so Mike, I actually found the Send wallet. You curious to take a look at this? It
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
looks
yeah, yeah. Pull it up, brother.
it looks pretty cool, man. Let's take a look at this. So Send, the Send app, and the URL here is info.send.it. And so here's the Send app. Here's the Send Canton wallet. So this is brand new for me. I've never used this one before. Let's take a look at the overview. So, passkey first crypto wallet that lets you log in with your face or fingerprint instead of memorizing seed phrases. No, okay. It runs on Canton, so your transactions are private. And it says the Send Safe is currently a separate app from Send App. Canton Network's technology stack is different from the EVM chains, of course. So they built this dedicated wallet to get it in your hands faster. Okay. So how do I get started with this here? Okay, getting started. Sendsafe.global. All right, let's.
Did you say it uses your face?
That's what it said here.
I don't know if I'm a fan of that. Just for
I'm not.
just
Yeah.
for the simple fact that potentially somebody could just use a picture of you, or they could beat your ass, and they can hold your phone up to your face and unlock your wallet. And it's I don't know. I'll hold my thoughts until you're done.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, you're right. You're very right. So I'm not quite sure what I think about a passkey wallet yet. But I definitely want to try this thing out here.
Oh,
So
absolutely, absolutely.
I'm gonna register. I'm gonna register and create a wallet. Probably don't want to be sharing that screen as I create the wallet
Well,
though.
here, let's do this while you get that set up. I'll keep going through the news,
Cool.
and then let me know when you're done, and we'll pop back to you. So it looks like, according to Sin Protocol's roadmap, the Canton Bridge is being rolled out as a native cross-chain pipeline designed to move assets seamlessly between Base and Canton network. It allows liquidity to flow from the public DeFi. You covered that. Integrated ecosystem components. The Send app that you're going through now, Send Connect, a specialized Chrome browser extension designed to let users easily connect their privacy-centric Canton wallets to decentralized applications running across the Canton ecosystem. So it looks like there's a browser wallet or a hot wallet as well, so that potentially you could connect to like Aerodrome, Morpho, things like that, protocols on the base network, so that you can take advantage of DeFi plays. The Send token, an ERC20 token natively on Base that can be bridged directly to Canton. It serves as the primary engine for rewards, governance, and alignment across both sides of the bridge. The CUSD
Oh,
stable.
oh, check this out, Mike.
What's up?
So I set up the Send app. So you see what I'm sharing right there. So it looks like, and I could be wrong here, but I'm taking a look at this is the Send wallet. So there I am. If anyone wants to send me some crypto, I'm at Moonshot right there. So check this out. If I hit add money, okay, great. Bank transfer, Apple Pay, debit card, crypto wallet, and this is on the Base chain. So here's my EVM wallet address to receive assets on the Base chain. Okay, great. But I want Canton. I don't really want to just add USDC on Base. How do I do that? So I hopped on over here back to my profile. And from my profile, I went to settings, and then take a look at this. Like, you can, put personal information of yours, like your birthday. Like, for me, that's anathema. Like, I don't want my birthday or email address or personal information associated with my, crypto wallet address at all. I don't want to dox myself like that, but it looks like with a wallet like this one, where it's, it's basically secured by my fingerprint. It looks like they're trying to make this a little bit more KYC. But as I scroll down to the bottom, let's see, connections. And then you see right here where it says Canton Wallet, get in first, stay ahead. I click on that. And then it's like, okay, get an invite to the Canton Wallet. So I've got to purchase a send tag. Okay, that's the first
What?
thing. And then I've got to deposit $25 to the savings account. And then I've got to hold $3,000 in send token. And
What?
then I get my Canton wallet verified. What the
Uh,
fuck?
no.
Yeah.
I
No, thank you.
now I do like the fact that they're building a bridge between Base and Canton Network.
Me too. Me too.
And I see that being a bridge to DeFi. And I would guess that, hopefully they rethink what you were just going over. But I would like to see, like what Crispy's talking about here. Um, Base going to list Canton too. I think he meant Coinbase.
Yeah.
I would guess. I mean, eventually, I don't know why they haven't already. Obviously, Canton Network is here to stay. Why they haven't listed it, I do not know.
I mean, it's definitely an interesting idea to be able to go back and forth between Canton and Base.
Yeah,
I like that, but having to purchase a send tag, deposit $25 in the savings vault, and
and
then
then
hold
buy
three
three
thousand.
thousand dollars of their
Oh,
token.
oh, oh
No.
no, 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 not $3,000. 3,000 of the token.
Oh,
So
I thought
yeah, no,
you had to spend
I
three
misspoke.
thousand dollars.
No,
I was like,
I
holy
misspoke.
shit!
So
No, no, no. I might have
here's
misunderstood.
the no, no, no. I definitely misspoke there. I said $3,000 of it. I
Oh, okay.
misread it. So send USD. The send token looks horrible.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, this thing is down only on the 4 hour, but 3,000 tokens. That means, if you're talking about 6 cents each, 3,000 times 0.06, so it's $180. So it looks like to be able to go back and forth, it's going to cost like $200 to be able to go back and forth. But like, what exactly do you get being able to go back and forth between base and Canton? What's the point? You know?
that's a very good question, and I think where the value is going to come in eventually. I don't see it there yet. Is being able to, like, people like me that have that have a decent bag of Canton, wanting to be able to use it in DeFi. As soon as I see on the base network to where there's DeFi plays on Morpho or on Avantis or on Aerodrome or something like that, and and I have a sizable dollar amount of Canton that I'm wanting to move to do that with, I could see spending $200 to have that ability, but it's not there yet. I'm not spending
Yeah,
$200 for the novelty of being able to move, from Canton Network to base and back.
agreed.
There needs to be an ROI. If I'm going to pay $200, I need to be able to earn more than $200.
Yeah, I mean, so this is what that could look like. Imagine if you're holding spot Canton on Canton, and then you're able to like bridge that over to the base chain, and then there's maybe a vault on Morpho, or there's someone creates a permissionless vault on Euler, and you're able to deposit that. I guess it would be like wrapped Canton.
Yeah,
You're able to deposit that on the base chain into a vault, and then earn some small yield, but then you'd be able to loop it. Then you could get levered exposure to it. That would be pretty cool.
yeah. And that's what I'm looking for. So that's why I was excited about this. Is just that it opens the door. It starts building, the path towards being able to use Canton assets, in DeFi. So that's pretty much the long and the short of that. All right. Let's get on to the next. So we got about 15 minutes. So under DeFi and protocol security, a stake DAO under ongoing exploit, security researchers have flagged a major active exploit hitting stake DAO. The attacker managed to mint trillions of unbacked VSD CRV tokens, prompting widespread alerts across the decentralized ecosystem. So let's pull up that news article.
Dude, why can't these developers just take their OPSEC seriously? Like, really? Like,
I know.
How is it that, like, it seems like every week there's some dev team that, like, oh yeah, no, we just wrote the seed phrase on a piece of paper and left it in
on
the
a bar napkin.
And I don't know what happened. It's $200 million gone. It's like, dude, like, I don't get it, man. How do they keep fucking up so bad?
It's I honestly I think that it was just, I hate to say it, but piss poor architecture, piss poor best practices, and it's going to weed out, it's going to weed out the chaff from the wheat, and that's what we're doing here on this channel. Is we are personally, and professionally, we are trying to educate ourselves and you on what we see as being the front runners that are building out, to mitigate risk. They are building out to be a part of the future financial system. The ones that are actually partnering with and launching, these different DeFi applications that are becoming part of the future of finance, the rails for the future of finance. There's no guarantees, but if you are focusing on these projects that are making all of these, good positive moves in the right direction, you're going to greatly increase your probability of success, as opposed to what most people do, and they watch social media posts and just throw money at the wall and hope it sticks. So, long term, if you have a long term mindset, a marathon, not a sprint mindset, that's what you have to do. Is you have to put in the time. You have to educate yourself. Otherwise, you can just chase, and sometimes it can pay off, but more often than not, it won't.
So Mike, the core thing here with this staked out compromise, in my opinion, is you see where it says deployer, the deployer wallet.
Yeah.
So for anyone who's ever built a DeFi protocol, I built two on an EVM chain, and then also I built on top of Lightning. But building on an EVM chain, like, dude, I don't understand how you can allow your deployer wallet to get compromised. Like, that's like mind blowing to me that would ever happen. That's just like, it seems like that's probably some type of social exploit. How exactly was that wallet exploited? How did they get the keys?
Well, here, let's dive in and see if it tells us. So they minted on Arbitrum and is actively swapping it for ETH. Man, if we can ETH again.
Yeah.
Let's see. So the VSD CRV, or Vote Boosted SDCRV, is a yield-related derivative token tied to the Curve Finance ecosystem and used within Stake DAO. Stake DAO said it was aware of the situation and urged users not to interact with that token. The suspected root cause is a compromised Stake DAO deployer private key, the researcher said. We keep hearing this. The attacker appears to have obtained the developer's private key and set an arbitrary peer for the token. Using that peer, they forged a malicious message that triggered unconditional minting of 5.44 trillion to their address. The exploit continues one of the worst periods for DeFi exploits, seemingly driven by advancements in artificial intelligence, with dozens of protocols hacked for more than 600 million since April, led by the 300 million exploit of Kelp DAO. On Tuesday, crypto security firm Open Zeppelin's Manuel Araz said that he considers all of DeFi unsafe, citing the asymmetry between attackers and defenders. I would disagree because not all protocols are built the same. Soda, co-founder of CPO Shalev Karin, told the block that the Stake DAO exploit is structurally similar to the Wasabi incident last month and several other deployer key compromises this year.
Here we go. So how did they get the deployer key? Like, how did they get it?
So it says the Stake DAO deployer key on Arbitrum was used to repoint the token's cross-chain bridge configuration to an attacker-controlled contract on Ethereum. And about 25 seconds later, that contract sent a layer 0 message back across, causing the legitimate Arbitrum token to mint over 5 trillion to the attacker, who is now dumping it for ETH. There is no smart contract bug here and no flaw in layer 0. There is one private key controlling one privilege configuration function with no multi-sig. So it's the same thing. It's one key to control everything. They're not using multi-sig. They're not using any sort of time lock, for, major, moves of, major amounts of liquidity. It's improper risk mitigation.
You see that last little paragraph there? That's
Kareen added that the incident highlights broader concerns about operational security and the concentration of privileged deployer permissions tied to audited DeFi protocols.
Right. That's the thing.
That's exactly what we've been talking about.
Dude, it's just like, yeah, it's super sad, man, because if it's one key, I want to know how in the world the attacker got that key. Like, how did the developers allow their one deployer key, not a multi-sig, one key? Who got it? How did it happen?
And if you're dealing with that much liquidity, why do you have a single key?
Dude, there are best practices for this stuff, man. Like, it doesn't have to be this way. It's just, it's kind of ridiculous. And it almost makes me think that it's not just negligence, that it's like maybe something malicious. Like maybe the person who had the key decided, hey, time to like pull some type of a rug. I don't know what else to think here,
Well, and what better guys to do it under is, there's been all these exploits. It's like, okay, yeah, no, I'll just, and I don't have any evidence, to that, but it's
just speculating. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a valid point. There's been a bunch of exploits, you're managing a key. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to peel off some liquidity and we'll just blame it on, North Korean hackers.
It was the North Koreans. What do you mean?
Forget about it.
Don't worry about the keys. I don't know where they're at. Yeah. It's just crazy to me. And how much money are we talking about here? It's probably, in the multiple millions of dollars again,
Well, I mean, we would need to look up. Well, it looks like so far just shy of $100,000, but 5.4 trillion of this, VSD CRV. So whatever that comes out to.
Very super duper curve.
Yes, very super duper curve.
Yeah.
All right. So what else we got going on?
Yeah, it looks like Keith, he only trusts his keys with Bernie Madoff. Well,
that's a good person. That's a good person to give your keys to.
Well, Bernie Madoff is dead. So like if you trust your keys to Bernie Madoff and he's 6 feet under, it's safer than trusting your keys to whoever was taking care of that one private key that just got exploited on this latest Curve DAO exploit. So yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's look at the macro headwinds. So ETF flows switch to distribution. Spot Bitcoin ETFs are seeing a major demand slump after absorbing only 4,500 BTC since the start of the year. Swissblock data indicates that flows flipped significantly from accumulation to distribution this month, pushing its market risk index into the high risk zone. amid broader liquidation risks. And then with that, we have whale absorption. Despite the negative outflows, BlackRock's IBIT executed a massive isolated block trade of 29 million shares valued at 1.3 billion this morning. Market analysts noted the price remained stable during the print, moving deep liquidity is still absorbing institutional hands. So what are you seeing on that, David?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the fact that there was a $1.3 billion block trade, in IBIT yesterday, and it didn't immediately just dump the price of Bitcoin. I mean, look, it did. It reversed, and we can see that on chain if we
But not like
or
it
just
used to.
well, it wasn't like a huge dump.
Yeah.
So you can actually see it right here. I can zoom in
Oh,
and you can see the actual trade. So this is an hourly. If I zoom into a 5 minute, we should be able to see it maybe a little bit better. But it was this right here. So markets were moving to the upside, and then that big trade came in, and it led to this little bit of a sell off here. But what it didn't lead to was like a 5 or 10% dump. Oh, you know what? Actually, that's not the sell off. That's the wrong one. This is a 5 minute. It's right here. So this was these two 5 minute candles right here. This was the trade, and yeah, it did lead into a bit of a move to the downside out of Bitcoin. But the fact that it wasn't like a -5% session for Bitcoin yesterday, that tells me that the market actually absorbed that selling pressure pretty well. Now, from peak to trough, Bitcoin moved by 4.25% after that trade to the downside. But
mhm.
that took, about what was that, like, 24 hours or so. So the market did absorb that selling pressure pretty well, I think. But here's the thing: you got to ask yourself, why is there an institution stepping in selling $1.3 billion of IBIT in a single block? I think the reason is, these guys are smart, and maybe they read the prophecy. The Bitcoin, there's some type of a cycle. There absolutely is. And the prophecy, the Bitcoin cycle prophecy, you know what? I got to just start calling it a prophecy, because that's basically what it is at this point. The Bitcoin cycle prophecy says that by the beginning of October, Bitcoin has put in a bear market low, and that we should see Bitcoin break down below the 200-week moving average, which right now comes in at roughly 62K. So got a big block order yesterday selling $1.3 billion of BTC. It looks like demand for Bitcoin through the spot Bitcoin ETFs is slumping a little bit. That's the news article, Mike, that you were reading.
Yeah.
And Bitcoin also got rejected at that 200-day moving average there. So all of these calls for some type of an alt season. A lot of people have been watching a handful of altcoins pump, and people are saying, oh, we're going to have alt season. So there's that 200-day moving average right there. People are calling for alts to rip to fresh all-time highs. I just, yeah, I sold,
I
I
hope
bought.
so.
Well, I mean, look, I bought some alts literally for about 18 hours. I wanted to see if hype was going to rip to like $100 or something like that. So I bought some hype at like the high 50s, sold it in the low 60s, and made a couple dollars and whatever. I bought some Tron, at 36 cents and change, sold it at 37 cents and change. Okay, great. I bought some near at like 230, sold it for 270. I bought some render. I think I broke even on the render, but like I sold all of it. And now I'm just short Bitcoin and Ethereum, because I think that Bitcoin's about to have its next leg down this
I'm
bear cycle.
I'm up 5% on my 2x short.
There you go. you know, that's all that matters, man. And when I see this type of pattern, like here's ETH. ETH looks horrible right here. This is a really ugly pattern, and support's already broken. So ETH is basically trading just below support right now. So if this actually sends, like if we zoom in here a little bit, the level to watch here for Ethereum is the low from this past Saturday. So, this past Saturday, first thing in the morning, we got a little bit of, some Iran news or whatever. So that low was just above 2000 for ETH. Get down below that low, and ETH is going to full send down to 1750. So,
Mm.
this looks very, very precarious for Ethereum, and same thing with Solana. Solana, is actually trading below that level of support now. So same thing with Sol. If Sol gets down below $81, I think it sends first down to 68, and then probably much, much lower. And the same thing's true for Bitcoin. It's just that Bitcoin has been outperforming the other majors. There's only like a handful of digital assets that have actually outperformed Bitcoin at all over the last year or two. So think Hype, Tron,
Hype, Tron,
and
and to an
Canton,
extent, yeah.
and that's basically it. Zcash has outperformed recently. I think Monero has recently outperformed, but that's about it. Just about everything else
Oh,
is
don't forget
massive.
XRP. Yeah,
Oh, yes, yeah, gotta remember X. So Joseph always hops in talking shit about XRP, man. What?
Oh, I know, I
It's
know, I
my
love it.
biggest bag, bro. The XRP bag.
Hey, hey.
Hey, oh man.
It's gonna be it's gonna move all the value, don't you know?
Yeah, I don't think so.
All right.
So,
Well, let me hurry and blaze. And I'm just going to blaze through these last articles real quick because I want to get into these deep dives. But Coinbase and Standard Chartered team up. Coinbase has tapped Standard Charter to expand its multi-currency funding rails. This partnership targets institutional clients who want seamless fiat to crypto routing directly through a tier one global banking infrastructure. Next up is Circle and Neum bridge stablecoins to legacy rail. Circle has partnered with Neum to integrate USDC settlement directly into global fiat payout networks. The arrangement is designed to enable faster cross border payments spanning more than 190 countries and 100 localized currencies. And then last is A16Z flags idle tokenized RWA liquidity. Venture capital firm A16Z crypto published data highlighted a bottleneck in the real world asset space. While tokenized bonds have grown a massive 15.2 billion, only about 5% of that supply is actively utilized within DeFi protocols. The
right,
rest remains entirely static on chain.
right,
This is important because, and I think a lot of these exploits is keeping a lot of these institutions from deploying this liquidity onto these protocols until they feel that there's proper risk mitigation, that there's proper best practices to keep that liquidity safe. They have an obligation to the people, their investors, to ensure that they're acting in their best interest. And until they feel that, they're not going to deploy that liquidity. So once that happens, I think that there's going to be this massive floodgate because RWA.XYZ, you can see that it's just up and to the right. Liquidity is flowing into these tokenized assets. Now, an important thing to understand is what this just said. That doesn't mean that they're in DeFi protocols. So once that starts flowing, then you're going to start seeing fees being generated. You're going to start seeing revenue being generated. And platforms with solid tokenomics, you're going to be able to benefit from that. You need to position yourself accordingly. So, David, what are your thoughts on those three before we get into the
so
details?
yeah, so that last part about these bonds just sitting on chain, but you can't do anything with them. That's the important part. So if I want to be able to do something with my bonds, what exactly does that mean? Let's say that I'm holding, maybe I'm holding like 30-year tokenized bonds, right? And I'm earning 5% on that. And maybe I want to trade, I want to trade a different part of the yield curve against my 30-year bonds. So maybe I want to trade, the 2-year against my 30-year. So if I'm long the 30 and short the 2, So what would they call that? That's not a tut spread or a knob spread or a fob spread. So fob is 5 over 30. A knob is 10 over 30. Tut is 2 over 10. So there's all these different yield curve trades that you can put on, or you could run like interest rate arbitrage plays. But the problem is you can't do any of that in DeFi right now. So like if you've got tokenized 30-year bonds or tokenized 10-year notes or tokenized 2-year bills, what exactly can you do with that stuff? Like there's no money market on there's no like you can't go to Morpho and deposit your tokenized bonds and borrow stables against them and loop it. You can do like specific actions on certain chains, but it's usually like permissioned. Like it's not just public. Not just anyone in retail can, swap into tokenized 30-year bonds and then borrow stable coins against them. Like I would love to be able to do something like that. But you just can't. And so the article that you were reading, Mike, about, there's nothing that you can do with this stuff on chain right now. It's totally
Yeah.
true. And so there's some liquidity. What is it, like $300 billion or $30 billion or something like that in RWAs? I don't exactly remember the exact number there, but okay, great. So you got these tokenized bonds on chain sitting there
Yeah.
doing nothing,
Yeah.
And so you need like actual utility. So what that requires is that you need some money market vaults that you can deposit these things into. In the absence of that, what exactly can you do with this stuff? Nothing, you know?
Well, and,
So,
and and that's the thing is, I mean, we're early. It's people tend to forget that. I mean, a lot of us that have been in crypto for a while, we have been here and we've seen all this evolution. There's almost nobody in retail that's involved in crypto right now. It's almost everything is institutions and big money. There's very few people that are in crypto. Most people have capitulated and moved on. So you need to understand that when it comes to adoption, there isn't clear legislation yet. There isn't the rules of the road. So these institutions aren't fully fully deployed. When it comes to building and deploying liquidity and getting involved in DeFi and things like that. I mean, they're just dipping their toe in, and that news article shows that there's a lot of stuff being tokenized. They know it's coming. They know it's going to be used, but they're not able to deploy into these DeFi protocols until there's proper legislation in place, until there's proper risk management in place. All these different DeFi platforms with this single master key
yeah, I
that
know. I was about to
gives
say that too.
that gives access to the castle and the kingdom.
Oh,
That's freaking retarded.
it is. It really is.
It's, and
Yeah.
pooling all of your liquidity, into one freaking one place to where it's all if somebody makes it to that, they have access to all of it. I mean, how stupid do you have to be?
I think that some of it might actually be intentional. Like, I think some of it might be intentional and malicious and not just like, oh, well, we lost the keys or like someone found the keys or like, make that make sense, man. Like if you have one deployer key, how exactly does that one deployer key get stolen? That's like the keys to the castle. Like you
Oh,
protect
dude,
that. Like, I don't get it.
so many things done wrong. So many things. So anyway, I don't want to burn through all the time for the deep dives because I love the deep dives. So what do you got for us today, David?
Okay, so let's start by taking a look at centrifuge. So, I know a little bit about centrifuge. I
Well,
thought that it was
well, let me. The reason that I asked you to do centrifuge is there's been a lot of talk about Ondo, and Ondo, along the RWA, and that's kind of why we're using this to segue in. Ondo has gotten a lot of mind share lately, and the price has been pumping. Centrifuge, not as much. It's another tokenization, project, and so I thought it might be interesting to learn a little more about it. So with that, David.
Yeah, so if I'm just taking a look at the token, okay, so if we just start by taking a look at the token, so this pump that was the what was that, like the DeFi summer in
Yeah,
2021?
yeah.
Yeah, so this pump here, it actually was one of the last tokens to pump, into that November end of the cycle there, two bull cycles ago, but so there was the all-time high up there. What is that? $2.60. I think that's the all-time high for the token. And then you've got a lower high, and a technical breakout. So great, we've got a breakout, and we're trading above that 200-day moving average, which I mean, look, most altcoins are not trading above their 200-day moving averages. So that's positive, right? You've got resistance up here at 40 cents, and centrifuge has rallied from 6 cents to 30 cents just in the last 2.5 months. So I mean, that is a massive move. This thing's put in like almost a 4x in the last 75 days or so. So you got to take notice when something puts in a couple of multiples like that. But is this just a dead cat bounce? I think so. Just judging from where Bitcoin is, where Ethereum is, we should be about to see like the most violent leg down over the next 2 months, 3 months or so into the fall. So we should be about to see Bitcoin and everything else just take a shit. Okay. So when I see like centrifuge, like this crappy little token pumping 4x, it makes me think, okay, I want to run in the opposite direction. And I don't necessarily want to get short this thing, but there's no way I'm buying it. So that was my analysis on the token, just the token price. But
Mhm.
what we've got to figure out now is, what do the tokenomics look like for this protocol? Like, is there some driver of demand for the token itself or not? So I think that the best thing to do here first is
We'll start with the
probably to,
video.
yeah, is to play the video content, and then we'll come back here. We'll run through the slide deck. Oh, and by the way, once we've run through all of this, if you want to take a look at the Intel section at the Node.pro, this all this research is going to be up there in the Intel section pretty soon. So this is really really cool. Basically, all I've got to do is fix the back end. So this is what the back end looks like where I post this stuff. I've
It's
just got to
all
fix
it's all about a good looking back end.
it. It really is. So here we go. We're going to play some video content. Let's learn a little bit here about centrifuge. And Mike, let me know if you can't hear this one.
By mid 2026, Centrifuge reached over $1.6 billion in total value locked, taking a commanding lead in the on chain private credit and structured finance sectors. This dominance was secured through direct Tier 1 institutional alliances.
Okay, so they're talking about private credit. So I'm assuming this is on-chain private credit.
Coinbase officially designated Centrifuge as its preferred real-world asset layer for the Base network, while
Huh.
Morgan Stanley prepared to use Centrifuge's smart contracts as the settlement engine for its regulated alternative trading system.
Okay, so this is great. Hearing stuff like this is great, but we've got to focus not on partnerships or use of the technology, and instead we've got to focus on the tokenomics. Like,
Yeah.
what does this mean for number
Token
go
holders.
up for the token, right?
Yeah. Well,
Does this,
because we
yeah,
covered this with Ondo, is Ondo, the Ondo Finance is doing amazing things, but as we showed in our deep dive, it doesn't necessarily mean great things long term for Ondo token holders.
and that's the thing that matters. Like, you can really like the project all you want, and think the tech is great and it's got partnerships, whatever. But if that doesn't in some way translate into number go up for your token, then what are you doing? Why do you own it?
Yeah,
So that's what we're always focused on here, is figuring out, how does a particular project's tokenomics mean number go up.
Sustaining this momentum required two distinct strategies. First, the development teams engineered a multi-chain EVM stack to process TradFi capital across 6 major networks. Second, the protocol executed a governance pivot that centralized control and paused active community voting. This transition created a divergence in the protocol's operating model. On the left, total value locked hit record highs. On the right, the protocol's native token underwent a decoupling of utility and revenue.
Okay, that's not good. Okay, just like, at a glance on its face, really quick, a decoupling between utility and revenue, like that's exactly the opposite of what you want to see. So let's learn a little bit more about this here.
While the massive financial products driving that TVL generate millions in off-chain revenue, those fees are retained by a centralized corporate foundation. The value flow bypasses the native CFG token holders.
Dude.
Yeah.
Dude, isn't this like so far this week, Mike? Isn't this like this has to be the second or third project that we've seen where they've done exactly this? Like
basically quietly rug pulled.
Yeah. That's basically what this sounds like. It's like, okay, so the centrifuge protocol is used by, Coinbase and Morgan Stanley together, and we're seeing TVL increase, and it makes a lot of money, but they voted to centralize control so that they could route those revenues off chain and screw the CFG token holders, because CFG, what is it now? Like, it's not even a governance token anymore.
No.
Like, what is it again? Wow.
According to this, nothing.
Yeah.
To understand how we got here, we have to deconstruct the V3 technical architecture, analyze the mechanics of the DRWA composability stack, and evaluate the plutocratic drift engineered by governance proposals CP149 and CP171.
Okay, plutocratic drift. Okay.
The move toward multi-billion-dollar traditional capital highlights a central tension: the trade-off between achieving institutional scale and maintaining the protocol's founding decentralized ideals. Prior to July 2025, Centrifuge operated its core infrastructure on an isolated Polkadot substrate app chain. This setup created significant technical friction. The substrate chain utilized an SS58 address format, meaning that to communicate with standard Ethereum addresses, the system had to manually pad data with 8 bytes of chain ID and an EVM tag. This architectural isolation became a major adoption bottleneck. Approximately 95% of Centrifuge's institutional user base and liquidity resided natively within the EVM ecosystem, and this bridge was the only way in. The V3 migration deprecated the substrate chain, deploying a central Ethereum hub. Using Wormhole, this hub connects to localized smart contract spokes on networks like Base. These spokes handle capital allocation natively, sourcing multi-chain liquidity without cross-chain complexity. The migration underscores a strategic choice in modern DeFi. For Centrifuge, the demand for frictionless EVM composability outweighed the technical sovereignty of its own isolated chain. Regulated traditional funds operate under a non-negotiable accounting requirement. They must maintain a continuous, auditable net asset value at all times. Standard crypto bridging mechanisms break this requirement. Burning a token on one chain and minting it later creates an accounting gap. For institutional administrators, this latency period is an impermissible drop, preventing real-time NAV calculations. Centrifuge eliminates this gap using ERC 6909. When a transfer begins, a receipt token instantly mints on the source chain, while a liability token is recorded on the destination chain. These balance perfectly, ensuring continuous NAV. To manage these assets, Centrifuge introduced the on-chain portfolio manager, allowing managers to rebalance multi-asset portfolios across multiple chains in single, unified transactions. The system operates under strict guardrails. The manager's execution wallet is restricted by a Merkle tree, and an allowance guard automatically reverts any transaction if external smart contracts fail to consume exactly 0 token approvals. Real-time accounting and restricted execution environments are the technical prerequisites for bringing institutional workflows onto public ledgers. The ultimate goal of tokenization is taking restricted securities and plugging them into liquid DeFi markets and automated lending protocols. Standard DeFi vaults always assume instant settlement. Real-world assets, however, require manual off-chain processing by a fund administrator to calculate daily NAV and clear subscriptions. Centrifuge bridges this using a 3-layer stacked vault. The base layer calculates NAV off-chain. The middle layer queues deposit requests until settlement. The top layer performs compliance checks, issuing a transferable ERC20 token to verified users. Because compliance is handled at the entry and exit points, the wrapped token can behave permissionlessly within secondary DeFi markets. This allows an institutional user to take their tokenized S&P 500 fund and post it as collateral on the Morpho lending market at a 197% collateralization ratio to borrow USDC. The DRWA stack isolates compliance friction to the primary issuance layer, enabling traditional equities to function as composable collateral across the broader ecosystem. While these technical systems scaled, the protocol's internal power structure shifted. Institutional adoption led to a series of governance changes that concentrated decision-making and economic influence.
Okay, that is important because all of the tech here sounds super cool. But if the DAO is owned by one dude, basically, or one institution, whatever,
Yeah.
and they own all the governance tokens or a majority, enough to be able to push through a
Same thing as
proposal.
Ondo.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, this centralization what looks like what they did is when the chain started making money, they just
Yeah.
voted to keep all the money. It's
So
like,
basically, they used retail to bootstrap their business, and then just when they got to a point, like you said, that they're getting actual adoption and getting profitable, they flipped the switch and flipped the script and cut out the token holders. So yeah, the shadiest shit.
yeah, super shady.
To provide institutional partners with a predictable operating environment, the Centrifuge DAO approved Proposal 171. This proposal paused all active on-chain governance tools and public working groups. Operational control and treasury management were transferred from the decentralized community to the Centrifuge Network Foundation, a board-led entity based in the Cayman Islands.
Of course.
This shift has led to a concentration of voting power. Just 14 addresses control half of the total CFG token supply,
There you go.
while the most active contributors to the ecosystem hold less than 1%.
Yeah.
The economic structure established under Proposal 149 further isolates the token. CFG has no maximum supply limit and operates on a perpetual inflation engine calculated against the total supply.
So
All
it's
newly
worthless
minted
and
CFG.
inflationary.
Dude, yeah, this is like the more I hear about this, Mike, the more I think like, oh, well, maybe I want to get short this thing.
All right.
I
Oh,
mean, if just taking a look real quick at the token itself, I mean, it's basically been tracking this 200 period moving average on the 4 hour up, for the last 2 months or so.
mhm.
But I mean, these tokenomics are horrible. So this 4x, from 6.5 cents to 30 cents, just about a 4x here. For what?
I'd
Just
be willing to bet in that those that Centrifuge, the company, and the insiders are. I would guess. I would want to look at the data, but I would guess that they're fucking selling into this pump.
I don't see how they couldn't. Like if you know anything about this CFG token, it
Yeah.
sounds like worthless dog doo doo. So I don't want to be holding a bag of doo doo, and that's what CFG sounds like.
Tokens flow directly to the treasury to fund development. For passive holders, this creates a continuous dilution of their relative voting weight to pay for network growth. Under this foundation structure, board members enjoy corporate indemnity, while the foundation retains off-chain product fees. In contrast, ordinary token holders absorb the protocol's systemic and regulatory risks without a direct claim to that revenue. Proposal 171 effectively transformed a decentralized DAO into a legally shielded corporate entity, isolating the operators from the socialized risks borne by the retail community.
And also making sure not to share any of the revenues with the CFG token holders. So, yeah.
Centrifuge's next major institutional catalyst is scheduled for late 2026, the integration with Morgan Stanley's alternative trading system. The protocol's smart contracts will serve as the settlement engine, connecting digital wealth wallets to on-chain tokenized equities and treasuries with instant settlement. However, the protocol's internal risk matrix identifies a core structural vulnerability. Under the category of fiscal asymmetry, the protocol faces the challenge of managing multi-billion-dollar assets, while the native token lacks a value capture mechanism.
Right.
Despite its massive institutional utilization and the millions generated in off-chain fees, the CFG token currently has no live burn mechanisms or fee redistribution protocols to capture that value.
Right.
The matrix mitigation plan points to a critical inflection point, a structural capital audit scheduled by the Foundation for late 2026. To align the interests of all participants, the Foundation must determine how to transition off-chain product fees into programmatic CFG buyback and burn mechanics or yield redistribution. Centrifuge built the technical infrastructure required for the institutional tokenization era. Its ultimate legacy now depends on whether its corporate foundation is willing to redesign its economics to reward the decentralized community that funded its inception.
Yeah, they're not. They're not at all. And they basically screwed their token holders like
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
So that sucks. That's not cool. And taking a look at this CFG token, like where could I get short this thing? Where's the yeah.
It's sold all over the place. Let's see.
Yeah, probably maybe one of the best. Let me see if there's a market on GMX. No market on GMX. There's probably a market on Hyperliquid, maybe. But when tokens get so bad, like CFG looks, a lot of the exchanges start to delist them. So let me just check and see if you can trade this thing on Hyperliquid. You might be able to. And if you can, then I wonder what the funding rate is, because I would like to sell it. So if I go Hyperliquid
All right.
CFG, yeah, I can't even trade it on Hyperliquid either.
Binance, or you're looking for a DEX, right?
Yeah, I was looking for a decentralized exchange.
Uniswap is the only one I'm seeing.
Yeah, so I'm over here looking at Coin Market Cap right now.
Yeah,
And,
that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm just looking. If I scroll down, DEX market only Ethereum.
Uniswap.
Looks like ETH mainnet on Uniswap. Yeah, so that's not exactly like trading it, not really, because I couldn't. I need to be able to either borrow CFG or just trade CFG on a DEX other than like a decentralized exchange, other than like a liquidity provision DEX like Uniswap. On centralized exchanges, yeah, I mean you can sell it on Binance or on Coinbase.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, what horrible tokenomics. I'm so happy that we went through that, because there's a lot of people where they've been talking about centrifuge and private credit and being able to borrow against your invoices that have been unpaid. If you're a business owner and you've got invoices that are unpaid, you can borrow against those, I think, and borrow stables using centrifuge in some way.
So Keith is saying Phantom Wallets, Perps has it, and Aster has it.
Got it. So,
but no, I agree with you, David, because I mean that's kind of why I wanted to talk about it. Is right now, with Ondo, you're seeing a lot of that narrative of tokenization. It's a huge narrative, and CFG hasn't pumped like Ondo has, and so a lot of people might think, oh, I can front run it, I can get in on CFG and make some money. Can you? Absolutely. I mean, we've seen shit tokenomics tokens freaking pump. Can it happen? Absolutely. But me personally, I'm not going to take that chance.
No way. And also, centrifuge is actually pumped way more than Ondo. Yeah, Ondo from trough to peak is it's up less than this now, but from trough to peak, the absolute low to the recent high, it was up only 140%. But CFG put in nearly a 4x, a little bit more than a 4x from trough to peak. So Centrifuge has already pumped, and now it's probably time for it to just give all of those gains back. Simply because, I mean,
I'd be willing to bet if you looked at the flows that that there's been a lot of selling into this pump.
yeah, I mean, it doesn't make any sense to hold it. Like, why in the world would you hold it? So it's great that it's migrated to an EVM native hub, and you've got that on-chain portfolio manager, and you've got a RWA stack, and there's
Great for the
strategic.
product and services and the company, but what does that mean for the token holder? Doesn't mean
Right.
shit.
Exactly. And that's what we're always talking about here is, if you're going to hold the token, how is number going to go up?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Other than hype and social media posts and things like that, because to be honest, that's how big money manipulates and uses people's emotions to steal your liquidity.
yeah, I mean, outside of like pure speculation, there needs to be like a legitimate mechanism by which revenues, accrue to token holders. If that's not the case, then you're holding some type of meme coin, or worse. Like, at least if you're holding a meme coin, it's a meme. But if you're holding CFG, you might think like, oh, look at all of these, strategic alliances and cool tech and the 1.8 billion in TVL. Like, this is great. My token's got to go up, right?
Yeah.
Well, no, because there's actually 14 dudes in the Cayman Islands that used all of their governance power
that are sipping umbrella drinks with girls in bikinis by a pool.
Exactly.
With your money.
Yeah, like they decided, hey, you know what? This protocol, Centrifuge, it makes millions. We're not going to share any of that with token holders. So they just voted to keep all the money. It's like, wow. Okay, so now that I know a little bit more about Centrifuge, I know to avoid it. All right, here's the next one. This one is Stellar XLM.
So the reason that I wanted to talk about this one is there's a bunch of talk on X and crypto Twitter and stuff like that, where like this here says a big 114 trillion plus custodian DTCC taps Stellar to bring stocks, ETF, and U.S. Treasuries on chain. So I did a little bit of digging, and it looks like that this does check out. To be fair, the DTCC is also using Canton. They're also using a lot of other chains. So this isn't just Stellar. But I figured that since it's starting to pick up some steam, starting to get some mind share, let's dig into Stellar XLM, and it's kind of a dyno chain. The bit that I know about it, I held it for quite some time. One of the former members of Ripple actually had to what do they call that? Whenever they leave, they had to basically sell all their interest. So he had to sell all of his XRP. For a while there, he was doing huge dumps of XRP as he was exiting. But he's the one that started Stellar XLM.
Yeah, and looking at the chart here, if I just zoom out,
Jed McCaleb or something like that, crispy.
So yeah, I mean, looking at this pattern, it looks to me like you've got support at 7 cents. That's what I see. Okay. Trading below the 200-week moving average, you've got that bear flag that you see on just about every altcoin. So you got the bear flag trading below the October 10th flash crash lows, trading below the 200-week moving average. Just speculative pumps and then dumps. No, real trend except sideways and down. Yeah, I mean, it's got support at 7 cents. So that's, if we just measure that, we're talking about another 50%, 55% or so to the downside. And, maybe even as low as 2 cents, 2.7 cents. Those would be the bear market lows from a last bear market. So that's just what I see on the chart. But let's learn a little bit about Stellar by watching the video content, and then we can take a look through the slide deck here. And Mike, as I play this, let me know if you can't hear it, and I'm going to grab some more coffee real quick. So.
Perfect.
Here we go.
By mid-2026, the Stellar network has successfully locked over $1.6 billion of institutional capital on-chain, securing a dominant position in real-world asset tokenization. Traditional financial entities are migrating directly to this infrastructure. The Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation has integrated with the network to tokenize assets like U.S. Treasury instruments, and sovereign states, including the government of Bermuda, have announced plans to migrate their national payment systems onto Stellar's rails. The on-chain metrics support this institutional pivot. The network processed over 3.6 billion operations in 2025 alone, and its native decentralized finance layer has crossed $235 million in total value locked. But this split-screen data visualization reveals a stark contradiction. On the left, we see the total value of real-world assets on Stellar skyrocketing past $1.64 billion. On the right, the market price of XLM, the network's native token, remains flatlined near 15 cents. The network succeeds using a specialized compliance-first architecture that Wall Street inherently trusts. Yet the exact economic mechanisms designed to fund that growth are the precise forces exerting downward pressure on the token's market value.
Dude, again, another one of these dog shit coins? Like, oh, man.
Processing billions of dollars in traditional financial volume does not automatically translate into token appreciation if the underlying tokenomics are restricted by a centralized treasury supply overhang.
Wow, dude, it sounds like this is very, very similar to what we were just watching. Like the same type of centralized treasury overhang. Man, these guys are really, really good at, cooking up great tech and then keeping all the money for themselves.
Well, and I think a lot of this goes back to that Ripple versus the SEC, lawsuit, where it ruled that retail sales of a lot of these tokens are not securities. It really was not a good thing, I don't think, for token holders, because
No.
there's no legal obligation, because it's not a security. There's no legal obligation for these institutions, to the token holders. So basically, they used us to bootstrap and build these services and things like that. And it sounds like a lot of these are quietly rug pulling.
I mean, that's basically what they're doing with the protocol revenues. They're basically taking those revenues and keeping them for themselves off chain.
I mean, they're taking away all the benefits of buying and holding the token.
And people don't know this. I think most people think that like a token is kind of like stock. It is not.
Well, they think that, but like I said, it's there's a whole lawsuit that that makes that whole thought process null and void. And what's crazy to me is there's almost nobody. I haven't heard of anybody other than us talking about this. I mean, this is one of our major focuses is the tokenomics and the connection between the token and the profitability. Because no matter how bullish, even if Stellar XLM or Ondo or Ripple or all these ones that we're covering that are doing this, even if their company moves all the value in the world, if there is no connection between the token and the revenue or the profits or fees that are generated, you are not involved in that success. This is not a stock. So keep going.
You're right. Yep.
XLM's price lags behind its utility, we have to look under the hood at how this network achieves consensus. The divide between Stellar and a standard proof-of-stake network comes down to how they handle a severe network partition. Most decentralized networks prioritize a concept called liveness. If the global network loses communication, it will automatically fork into two separate ledgers, allowing users to keep transacting on both sides until the partition resolves. Stellar approaches this differently. Using the Stellar Consensus Protocol, the architecture prioritizes absolute safety over liveness. Under Federated Byzantine Agreement, individual nodes form localized cluster rings, called quorum sets. Operators construct these by selecting validating entities they deem trustworthy, relying on Tier 1 organizational reputation. To reach consensus, the network calculates a specific mathematical threshold of agreement to prevent divergent states. If that mathematical threshold isn't met due to catastrophic failure, the ledger halts automatically. The network chooses to freeze motionless rather than process corrupted transactions. This structural guarantee against double spending and ledger forks is the mandatory technical prerequisite for traditional entities looking to issue regulated instruments, like U.S. Treasuries, on a public blockchain. Once the ledger is secure, those financial assets need to be traded. In decentralized finance, there are two ways to build exchange infrastructure: deploy it as a distinct smart contract on top of the network, or hard-code it directly into the base layer. Through the CAP38 upgrade, Stellar chose the latter, embedding automated market makers natively into its Layer 1 code. During a multi-hop path payment, the input splits. The core engine analyzes on-chain liquidity simultaneously, routing part of the trade through classic limit order books and the rest through constant product liquidity pools. This native atomic operation ensures the optimal price with minimal slippage. On competing networks, liquidity is fragmented across disconnected smart contracts. This fragmentation attracts competing automated arbitrage bots that flood the ledger with transactions to capture micro discrepancies in price, driving up congestion and gas fees. Stellar's execution engine eliminates this entirely. It conducts automatic arbitrage rebalancing under the hood during every single user trade. There are no risk-free margins left behind for external bots to exploit. By integrating the exchange logic directly at the protocol layer, Stellar strips out bot-driven network congestion. The result is a highly predictable, flat fee structure, which global payment corridors require to operate at scale. With the deployment of Soroban, its native WebAssembly smart environment, Stellar has matured from a simple, low-cost payment rail into a full-scale execution platform. The recent Protocol 26 upgrade, known as Yardstick, optimized this environment for Wall Street. It introduced checked variants of 256-bit integer math for strict numeric safety, alongside native zero-knowledge cryptographic primitives. CAP 0077 introduces a protocol-level quorum freeze mechanism. If an exploit is detected, validators can reach consensus to transparently freeze compromised ledger keys. Any transaction touching those keys is instantly rejected at the protocol layer, and active offers are pulled from the order books. For the broader decentralized community, this triggers heavy critique. The ability for a validator set to freeze account balances directly challenges the absolute censorship resistance and permissionless ideals that public blockchains were built upon. But regulated capital markets operate under different constraints. Selective data disclosure and transparent, reversible emergency responses are exactly what separate highly compliant institutional architecture from speculative retail experiments.
Okay, so here's something that comes to mind as we're going through this, Mike. How many of these different like institutional chains or institutional products have we basically like done deep dive research on and reviewed over the last couple of months on this channel? I mean, how many would you say? Like a dozen? More than a
Oh, at
dozen?
least. At least.
Yeah. So like I just have a hard time seeing the future being so bifurcated. Like, I don't see how you're going to have like dozens and dozens and dozens of these different public or private ledgers with different consensus mechanisms and tokenomics and operational standards and interoperability problems. Like, I don't see how large banking cartels or large institutions are they're not all going to be speaking a different language. Like each one of these ledgers is like, almost like an isolated silo. And I think that we're going to see most of these products like XLM Stellar die. Okay, great. You got 1 point something billion in TVL. For these institutions, that is nothing. Like it's tiny, tiny, tiny. And so I just don't see how the future is going to be, multi-chain. It can't be that there are, 100 different chains and that liquidity is bifurcated on 100 chains. That doesn't make sense.
Liquidity is going to migrate and move to the ones that provide the fastest, most secure, that have the most opportunities, where most of the liquidity is being housed, that has the most opportunities in DeFi and yield, generating yield. That's just naturally. where, especially institutional money is going to flow. The ones that are compliant, the ones that are modular, the ones that can scale. That's the ones that are just going to naturally, start sucking up a lot of the liquidity.
I think the winners are being chosen right now. I think that Canton has been chosen as one of the chains that's likely going to be a winner, simply because of the size, of the notional volumes that are transacted on there every single day. Like,
Yeah.
you're not talking about, Stellar generating millions of dollars in revenue every day because of the hundreds of billions in repo flow. We're not talking about that. We're
No.
talking about, Stellar has 1 point something billion in TVL of basically bonds that sit there and do nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And tell me again why that means never go up for the token.
Well, and stagnant money doesn't generate fees. It doesn't generate, even if the tokenomics were, such that, somehow you earn from, like the network volume, the movement of that liquidity. It's just, if it's just bonds sitting stagnant on the chain, there's no movement, there's no transactions being done. It's so. Yeah, there's way too many. I'm seeing way too many negatives on this.
Yeah, and you know what though? So something that Crispy said in the chat. So yeah, those projects are I would say higher quality than XLM for sure. But what he said about on chain, it's almost all U.S. Treasuries. Wisdom Street Fund is like over half of the TVL. So I think what we've got to start thinking about is what would be the first signs that a chain is dying or like about to die. And I think that like
when they vote to disconnect the token from the profitability of the company.
I think that that's one of the things. Another one of the things is, look, if I'm Wisdom Tree and I've got bonds on this random chain, Stellar, and they're just sitting there doing a whole lot of nothing. But if I take those bonds and I move them to Canton, now I can borrow against them, or I move them to chain XYZ, and now I can do something with them. I think that one of the better signs of that a chain is about to die is if you see institutional TVL exiting that chain. So I wonder which of these dinosaur projects is going to be the first to die. I think that there's going to be a lot of them that just kind of fade out over the next year or two. I think it's going to happen quick. But then people, retail, they're still going to be left holding the bag. Like, there are people who still hold XLM. There are people who still hold Centrifuge. So, yeah.
Institutional decentralized finance is, at its core, a strict compliance problem. Without built-in risk mitigation tools like quorum freeze, entities managing billions in real-world assets simply cannot legally participate on a public ledger. We arrive back at the core paradox. Stellar possesses the specific settlement architecture required by regulated markets, yet its native token faces a structural blockade limiting its market value. The maximum supply of XLM is strictly capped at roughly 50 billion tokens. Through a previous validator upgrade known as CAP26, the network's protocol-level inflation mechanism was permanently deactivated. No new XLM can be minted. Furthermore, the network features a deflationary sink. Every operational transaction fee and all gas paid to execute Sorabon smart contracts are collected into a protocol-level fee pool that remains locked and totally inaccessible, removing those tokens from circulation. This bar chart breaks down the current distribution of that fixed supply. Today, there are roughly 33.4 billion XLM in active circulation, but sitting adjacent to that active float is the non-circulating supply controlled by the Stellar Development Foundation, representing approximately 16.55 billion tokens. Under an updated mandate framework, the Foundation has committed to distributing the vast majority of these treasury funds to finance ecosystem development, incentivize developers, and subsidize enterprise integrations over a 10-year horizon. This scheduled deployment acts as a persistent supply overhang. Every time the foundation releases mandate funds into the market, it increases the total floating supply, directly offsetting the deflationary pressure created by the fee burn mechanism. The continuous release of these treasury reserves exerts a permanent gravitational pull against the network's internal deflation, constantly requiring the market to absorb new liquidity. For
The Jewish
XLM to
woman.
achieve sustainable asset
Liquidity.
appreciation, the network must generate a massive volume of retail transactions and organic smart contract gas consumption, enough to mathematically outpace and absorb the foundation's scheduled token deployment. Stellar's technical architecture has decisively won the institutional real-world asset
Should
race.
we decode that?
But until the organic demand...
Yeah. What did you make of that?
So basically, what I made of that is that they're trying to make sure that retail is using it enough to generate the burn so that they can offset them dumping the token.
I mean, it's just like, dude, in my opinion, it's such a shame, because all of these tokenomics schemes, they basically just screw retail. If you can't understand these tokenomics schemes, they're these economic incentive mechanisms. And if you don't understand this stuff, then you're gonna get stuck holding the bag. You're gonna have a bad day.
Yeah.
You don't want to get stuck holding a bag of doo-doo. And
Yeah.
I mean, most of the stuff that we've gone over the last couple of months,
Yeah.
most of it is doo-doo.
Yeah.
And
that's why I'm on social media, just constantly telling people that are going on and on about these pumps. Take profits. Take profits. Take profits. Could we be wrong? Absolutely. Never underestimate hype and retail. Keep a small bag if you're worried about it. But in these pumps, if you're in profits, take some of it off to the side, put it into stables, put it into Bitcoin, put it into solid projects like Tron, like Hype, those ones that Crispy was talking about, that we've talked about. Hype, Canton, Tron, Tau, Morpho. Morpho, I'm bullish on, but Hype, Tron, Tau, Canton, all very, very solid projects.
Now here's the thing, though. So during the market wrap call and the private coaching session with Ellie yesterday afternoon, we ran through the hyperliquid research.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as I like the fact that Hype is bought back using protocol revenue and burned, if we really get into the depths of the bear and Bitcoin has another dumpy dump, then protocol revenue over there on Hyperliquid is going to continue to decline. I mean, protocol revenue, I think in Q3 of 2025 was like $300 some odd million, and all it's done is decline from there. And so that means less buyback pressure.
Well, the programmatic burns, basically.
Right. So I'm just thinking to myself, well, I always am thinking, how can this go wrong?
You have to.
Yeah.
To understand, what's going to happen long term, because you can't just. And a lot of people think that we're, trying to, FUD and stuff like that. We're just trying to paint the full picture for you, so that you go into these assets if you choose. Again, we're not influencers. We're not trying to influence you to do anything. We're educators. We want to educate you on the full picture so that if you choose, you don't have to, invest in what we're bullish on. But whatever you invest in, at least you'll do it fully knowledgeable about what you're investing in.
Yeah, 100%. You got to know what you're holding. So, Mike, I've run all of these, private sessions with clients. I've worked with literally hundreds of private clients. And, something that's just so crazy to me is, I'll have a call, the first call, and, I'll ask clients like, hey, so, tell me about what it is you want to achieve. And they'll invariably start telling me about the tokens that they hold. And, then I'll be like, okay, so why did you decide to swap into, a dog shit fuck coin? And they're like, oh, well, I saw
on social media.
It's exactly what people say. That's exactly, dude. So when you ask someone okay, so of your $100,000 portfolio, you put $15,000 into like, that's 15% into like some random coin based off of a tweet that you saw, and you didn't do any research at all? Like, you would never do that for a stock, right? You wouldn't just like, oh, I'm going to take 15 grand and buy some random company's stock. You would never do that. But for some reason, when people start taking a look at crypto and these digital assets, they do stuff like that. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Honestly, I think because they look at crypto and they see, these, influencers, these people that just hype stuff, and they, see all the content getting put out where I made, a 3x, or I made a 10x, or I made a 100x, and people are treating it like a lottery ticket. And, if you're putting like $10 or $100 or, something like that into it and treating it like a lottery ticket, that's one thing. But, you got to look at the risk reward. A lot of these projects that we're talking about are already, large cap projects. They've already made those big moves. So your upside is far less. You might, on a lot of these, you're a lot better off buying some new meme coin on a chance that, it's going to 50 or 100x than buying some of these large cap, shit tokenomics, projects, in my opinion.
I really do agree. I want everyone watching, before you make a decision to, buy that next token, whatever it is that you want to buy at some point during, the rest of this bear market over the next 6 months, before you hit that button to buy, at the very least, hop on over here to the Intel section at the node.pro and watch through watch through one of these video slide decks and learn about the tokenomics of the coin that you want to buy. Pretty soon here, we're going to have a really deep Intel library of, solid Intel here, on like the top 300 protocol coins. So, yeah, you're definitely going to want to just jump in, literally do the bare minimum. Like, please, just do that for yourself.
For your sake, not for ours, for your sake.
I have no dog in this fight. Like, I'm short, so like I'm short Bitcoin, I'm short ETH. I don't own any of these tokens. All I want to figure out is, for the next bull, which of these coins has the very best tokenomics and is making money so that I can pick up bags of those coins over the next 6 months, hopefully at much, much lower prices, and then benefit from that during the next bull. So I'm just doing the deep dive research. Mike, you and I, we're doing this with Jeff together so we can figure out like, hey, when it's time to buy, what are we buying, man? And
a lot of this, like you mentioned earlier, David, I mean, a lot of this, we're being educated along with you.
Yeah.
Again, we're all about education here. And these projects are always evolving. It doesn't mean that because they have shitty tokenomics now that it's going to stay shitty forever. That could change. Something with really good tokenomics could, turn to shitty tokenomics if it's a DAO and there's some freaking vote to where they basically do a silent rug pull. It can work the other direction. There's been rumors that Ondo, that supposedly they're going to do a vote to, make it not just a governance token, but make it a part of, utility, part of the project. That is pure speculation, though. Until that happens, I am digging my heels in that it has shit tokenomics and I'm not investing in it.
Well, because it does, it does. And most of them do. So, for anyone who's watching this, like, we do these deep dives every single day. And, the more that you are exposed to these economic and incentive models, and the more that you learn about them with us, then eventually you'll be able to go and do the research yourself and be like, hey, token XYZ, actually it's got this really funky incentive model and I don't like it. And then you'll be able to figure out, okay, these are the hallmarks of poor quality incentives. And these are the hallmarks of, what I'm looking for, like the positive incentive models. So, but
yeah,
you gotta do the
basically
work.
build a checklist of, these are the things that I look at before I buy into a project. And every once in a while you do a check on health. You go back and you're like, okay, I need to look. Has any of these things changed? Is there still good tokenomics? Check. Are they, is the ecosystem, still growing, or is it contracting? Take that into account. All these different aspects of a healthy project with healthy tokenomics, or, is it, is there no connection between the token and the project? Is liquidity or TVL leaving, that project and moving somewhere else? These are all things that you don't just need to look at when you're entering initially. These are things that you need to check on a regular basis so that you're not the exit liquidity for other people.
Yeah, I mean, look at what we just learned, when it came to Centrifuge today. That they executed a DAO governance vote to give themselves all of the money. Like, okay, and to remove the ability of anyone holding the token to actually have a say. So like, if we hadn't run through that deep dive research, I never would have known that. I would have always thought that Centrifuge was some type of RWA play where you could borrow against your unpaid invoices and something to do with private credit. But now that we've done the research, I know to stay far, far away from that coin. So yeah,
absolutely. So yeah, no, keep an eye out. We're going to be hosting these deep dives here soon. Starting here. Make sure that if you are interested, we have another block of music being posted here in about an hour, right after Jeff's deep dive on the blockchain report. That will be going live. So go ahead and check that out. And I think that's it. And then I'll be on social media, as a lot of these deep dives get posted. I'll probably be posting on our X account, just links directly to the different projects, and I'll tag them, with the the dollar hash or whatever they call that, just so that it's easily, people can easily find them, when they're searching. So if you want to follow us on X, it is at the @node_network. There
sweet.
You go.
Awesome.
So, all right. Well, next up, like I said, Jeff is live, not live. Jeff is has a deep dive going on the blockchain report, here on the Node Network. And later on today, let me actually check this with you all so you can do the same. You can go to programs, under more, go to programs, scroll down. What do we got going on today? So after the blockchain report, we got the daily market wrap with David at 4 p.m. Eastern. And then myself and David will be on the call at 5 p.m. Eastern. Is that Eastern or?
Yeah, so that's 5 p.m. Eastern in 3 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll both be on that call with the community. And again, if you want to join that call, there is a 1-week no cost trial. That all you got to do is come to community, or actually just go to learn and scroll down.
Oh, it's the community tab.
Oh yeah, community, and then you can join on Discord, premium live calls. Join the Discord, and then it will give you the link. For the next 3 calls, over the next week, you'll be able to join those and see what it is potentially that you'd be paying for. If you decide to to pull that trigger. So, got anything before we wrap it up?
No, man. Just looking forward to that next musical set. I think that's going to be fun.
Absolutely. All right. Well, make sure you join Jeff next. And until next time, Veteran Crypto out.
Peace.